Welcome back to AutoCrit's Coffee Break. My name is Bekah Brinkmeier, your host. I am a best-selling romance author, author coach at AutoCrit, writing instructor, and wearer of many publishing-related hats. One of my favorites, though, is being host of our coffee break because I get to sit down with our AutoCrit Pro community and find out what they're up to. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Paula. So welcome to the show, Paula.
Thank you, Bekah. I'm glad to be here.
So fun to talk to every single person, and I can't wait to hear about what you've been working on. So I would love to just open us up and have you tell us a little bit about who is Paula, the author, what inspires you, what genres do you write in? Let us know who you are.
All right, thank you. Well, I have been writing and telling stories since I could first spell.
I love that.
Yeah, I remember being, I don't know, about 7 years old and making my first little book and stapling it together. And then when I was in seventh grade, I wrote my version of a Nancy Drew mystery. And then I majored in college in creative writing. So it's just been my path from the get-go. And I write, I'm a book coach, I do editing. And as you may see when you look at my resume, I'm also a dream and tarot intuitive. And I use both those tools in order to help people do their writing. So it has a direction and a purpose with that. My first book that I wrote in about 2006, 2007 was called Weaving a Woman's Life. And it was inspired by my years as a professional weaver on the craft show circuit.
Wow.
And I used weaving as a metaphor, obviously, for a woman's life, spoke about it in terms of the warp, the weft, the structure, the mistakes, all of that. And self-published it back at a time when self-publishing was a real challenge and really not so respected yet. So that was my first publication. And then, of course, I've done a lot of freelance writing for online and offline publications and so forth. Then and somewhere around, I think it was around 2010, somewhere around there, I started attending, and you may know about this, Romance Writers of America conferences. My first one was in Washington, D.C. A dear friend of mine, Zita Christian, took me. And I was so astounded by the professional attitude of the women, mostly women there. There were some men, but mostly women, towards their career, because I had been a member of other writing associations for a while that were less formal, less educated. It was all about more about self-expression than it was about developing a career, which is fine. That's great. But I was ready to move into a new field. So going, attending those conferences years after year, year after year, and some of the regional chapters like the New Jersey Romance Writers and so forth, I finally sat in front of an editor who was interested in a story I pitched her called In the Land of the Vultures. That's this. And it was inspired by a dream. So I walked my talk. That was published. At the same time, I was also attending International Tarot Conference every year. And while I was there, I met the sales rep and who became editor of Schiffer and Red Feather Publishing. And I pitched them the idea of tarot with the fiction, tarot for the fiction writer. And they liked it. I wrote it. It was published in 2019. And a year or two later, I pitched them another idea I had, which was enchanting creativity based on the Sleeping Beauty story. And they liked that, and I did that one as well. And one of the things I can say as an author, as a book coach, as someone who does developmental editing and so forth for other writers, who's been teaching writing on sites like Savvy Authors and other places, my language, if you want to call it that, my palette for writing is myth and fairy tale. And that, you can find that in the tarot, you can find it in dream
Mm.
work, you can find it in fiction, romance, everywhere you can find. And in fact, I'm teaching an online class right now on myth and fairy tale for science fiction, fantasy, and paranormal for a chapter of RWA. I have a book coming out in February titled The Tempting Voice, which is kind of a combination of Rapunzel meets the Muse, or the Muse's son. And then I'm also working right now on a tarot cozy mystery. So
Ooh, oh my goodness. There's
great.
so many things here. I love that you're focused on fairy tales and mythology and how, incorporating in the dream work there, incorporating in the tarot there. There's something so, what is the right word? Foundational about how we build
Yes.
stories from the myths, from the fairy tales that came before us. There's so many different themes that you can build in there that can reflect society, that can reflect, as someone who I write romance, so I predominantly write a lot of women as my characters as well. So you get to incorporate someone's journey and their position in society when you are writing fairy tales. I think it's something that people often incorrectly write off as something simply for children, but there's so
Well,
much that can be learned from fairy tales.
they write it off for
So,
children and or um, I think mistakenly, many feminists write it off because they don't like the happily ever after or that the prince rescues the princess. But if you really look at fairy tales extensively, and not
mm,
just the Grimm, but other sources, there's much more to it than that. Like, oh, well, I won't go into it now, but
yeah,
there's just so much richness there.
there is. We just did the expert session on folklore and being able to pull from the folklore of different traditions and things like that just to understand
Yes.
where people were. It's so fascinating. You are a member of our AutoCrit Pro community, and we thank you for being a member of AutoCrit. What would you say, as someone who does do developmental editing for other people, you've edited some of your own work, you've worked in writing and publishing for, a lot of your career. What would be a tip you could give to perhaps another author right now that's staring down their first draft, going, "Oh no, it's editing time."
Well, one of the things I love about using AutoCrit the first couple of times I was editing, like In the Land of the Vultures and some of
Hmm.
my other work, was that I thought it was excellent at teaching me my own writing tics
Mm,
because we all have them. We have, you know, um, repetitive words like so and that, and we slip into or past perfect tense. Or really, I mean, I did a lot of freelance work where I had a
mm,
word limit I had to stick to. So that helped me tighten. Plus, I publish a newsletter every week that I'm trying to keep between 500 and 750
mhm,
words. And so that teaches you then to really consolidate and be careful about your verbiage. I think a lot of new writers tend to overwrite. And that probably sounds crazy because they're probably worried about, oh, this is only 20,000 and I need
mhm,
60,000 more, to finish this book. But often there's too much verbiage and it weighs down the story. It's like someone who's put on too much weight and they can't run fast enough. You can't keep up the pace of your story if it's over verbalized. And so I think that's one of the things AutoCrit's really helpful for is keeping you on track. And so looking at that, using AutoCrit to really look at repetition, passive language,
mhm.
all of those things. And one of the things when I was writing in the Land of the Vultures, I had an agent at the time, and he came back after he'd read the manuscript and said, "You say their names too many times." And so,
I've had that feedback as well.
have you? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there are things like that of course, when you're writing, you just want to write. But when you're
Mhm,
going back to edit, and that's the other tip I would say is You don't just edit once.
Mm.
You edit, I would edit the first time for good story structure and development. Then I would edit perhaps for language use. Am I in active voice and past rather than past perfect and passive? And then I would look at spelling and copyright and proofing, all,
Mm.
copywriting and proofing, those kinds of things. And a lot of time new authors will tend to do it in reverse. And it's like you're doing all that copy editing and all that proofing when you need to restructure the story, and we'll probably have to do it over again. So there's that aspect of it as well. And the other thing I would say that I found, because I've written fantasy
Mm.
and now I'm writing contemporary myth, uh, romance, who knows which slot it would go in. But now I've shifted. I'm also writing, as I said, the Tarot Cozy Mystery, and that's a new structure for me. I use the AutoCrit thing that you can run your manuscript through to have it look at the overall premise, the conflict through lines, and
Hmm.
so
The
forth.
story analyzer.
Yes, and the story analyzer. And even though I'm not finished with the manuscript, I'm about maybe a third of the way through. I wanted to see, how is this going? What's tracking? What's happening? Am I conveying what I mean to convey?
Mm.
So I find AutoCrit very helpful for that as well.
I think that's one of my favorite features as someone who does ghostwrite quite a bit. That is something that I use because as someone who writes for other people, I can't use my beta team on my ghostwritten work. I am bound by a very strict NDA for my client's safety and for, this is my business, so it's a good business practice. And so being able to get the story analyzer level feedback, it's going to give me that either validation that my idea is flowing, that the story is going in the right direction, or correction in that if I'm running that at 40% done and it's pulling out some plot threads that I had missed or some other things of that nature, I'm then able to correct because the thing I hate the
Yeah.
most is rewriting.
Uh, yes.
I hate rewriting. So I would rather correct it then deal with it later when I'm already out of the flow and realize that I, accidentally forgot that it was a Labradoodle in chapter 2. It's a Australian Shepherd in chapter 9, and it's a Great Pyrenees in chapter, 40. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on with this dog. It's not magical, but maybe it should be. So this actually happened. In one of my books, I was apparently in a multi-dog breed mode.
Well, that's the other thing too about it, using the story analyzer, because of the chapter lines and summaries that it has. If you're writing a series,
Mm.
you can use it as reference when you go to write the second, third, fourth, whatever, however many books you're going to write in it.
Yeah, that is so helpful. You can also save it over to a note so that you can check your notes and just keep it there. I keep learning through all these interviews, all the different ways that people use our story analyzer, and it's so much fun.
Yes.
So I am grateful for it. It definitely expedites my writing process.
Well, and I was looking at it before our conversation, and I like the section that goes for specific examples where the story
Mm.
excels. Good. Tell me the positive
Yes.
first,
Don't just rip it up. Tell me something I did right.
Right.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that's what I try to do as an editor too.
And that's what I try to do. As someone who also coaches, that's what I also try to do. Like, let's start with your strengths. Everyone, no matter how many books you have, there's always something to improve. So we'll get to
Oh,
that part, but
absolutely.
we're going to start and celebrate first. And I think that that's it's the way I prefer to receive feedback. So I'm glad that we have this as well. So, as we wrap up our coffee break, I'm going to put you on the spot, Paula, and I'm going to have you pitch your book to our audience, to me, to let us know why we need to pick this up at our next trip to the bookstore.
Well, your next trip to the bookstore for the book I want to pitch is not going to be until after February. That's when The Tempting
That's okay.
Voice releases. And I love the story because and I hope it turns into a series. It's about the importance of creativity in each of us. The Greek have an idea called Merika, which is the creative spark. And so the whole series is based on the idea that we need to reclaim it. And the gods and goddesses, and especially the muses, want us to reclaim it because it's there that their power, their health, their well-being flourishes. And my heroine is one whose Marika has been suffocated because of the resentment of her mother. And I won't go into more than that, but it's just, I hope it becomes a boost to people who are constantly trying to struggle to reclaim their creativity, their creative power, and the importance of their story. I think now more than ever, storytelling is so important.
I agree, and I look forward to when this book goes live. It sounds is incredibly needed in this current space that we are in history where we are more stressed and less stories, and we need to reverse that and continue
Yes,
to
we do.
tap into that creative well. I just want to thank you so much, Paula, for being on my show today and for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and your work with us. It has been a pleasure to chat with you.
It's been a delight, Becca. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And to those that are listening, thank you for tuning in. This is your friendly author coach reminder that if you haven't written today, you should consider doing so because your book needs to be written. And you probably have words that could be put down today. And with that, we will see you next time. Thank you so much.